Hello readers, I'm Amy and today I am going to discuss tropes that I love. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for this. I couldn't come up with as long of a list as I could for tropes that I hate, but really, is it just me or is it when you're talking about something unpleasant, you just have more to say? Anyways, here we go with our list. First one is unlikable characters. I hear so many booktubers talking about how they can't stand an unlikable character, and I don't get it. I think that it makes things more interesting. Some of my favorite characters in books are the villains, who give me a really complicated villain who's unlikable but has some decent reasons for doing something, or you can kind of see their perspective even if you don't like them very much. I love a good unlikable character. It keeps things interesting. I don't want to be in love with every single character. I want to have those characters that give me conflicting feelings, that make me angry. Because even if they're not good emotions associated with a book, like if a whole book just makes me angry, that still makes it a memorable book. And I think unlikable characters are a huge part of that. I'm here for the unlikable characters. If you have a character that I don't like, tell me about it down in the comments, and I'll probably read that book. Then we have love triangles. I mentioned this. I don't know which video I'm going to post first. Tropes I love or tropes I hate. But love triangles was on the tropes that I hate list, and I'm going to talk about it again because most of the time, I think love triangles are awful. They're very predictable. They're more one-way than three-way sort of a thing. But in N.K. Jemison's A Fifth Season, we have an awesome love triangle where you have these two people who are forced together and eventually grow an emotional love for each other, even though they're not physically into each other. But they eventually end up introducing a third person to this relationship who is sexually appealing to both of them and is sexually attracted to both of them, and we end up having this really strong, awesome, polyamorous relationship, and I loved that, and I want to see more of that in books whenever it comes to love triangles. Multi-character perspectives. Here's another unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people don't like multi-character perspectives. I don't know if it's just too much for them to keep track of, but I love multiple characters. Jodi Picoult, I think, was the first author that I read growing up that had that multiple character perspective, and I love it. I think it's great to challenge the author to try and write those different perspectives, and a lot of authors, I think, can do it really well. It can be kind of frustrating. As I'm filming this, I'm currently reading Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and the thing that I don't like so much with that particular multiple character perspective is that the different characters, when you swap characters, it's not labeled. However, the author is talented enough with her writing style that I can easily tell which character is which, even though they aren't labeled. And I just like to get the different perspectives on what's going on. And that also introduces my next favorite trope, which is multiple timelines. When you have multiple characters, a lot of times you'll have timelines that are just a little off of each other, like you'll look at an event up to a certain point of time and then go back to the beginning of that event and switch perspectives and go back to that certain point in time. Or you also have books like I'll Give You the Sun, which follow twins. One twin, you're following their perspective when they're 13. The second twin, you're following their perspective when they're 16. And I love that multiple timeline, that change in timeline. I don't do as well with it with audiobooks. Audiobooks, I'm kind of finicky on which genres and kind of stories will work for me. So timelines for audiobooks can get confusing. But for a good physical or ebook, give me all the multiple timelines. I love it. Next trope isn't so much a trope as a way of telling stories, but I had to mention it anyways. That is epistolary. I want to say that Dracula is the first epistolary book that I ever read, and I loved it. Epistolary means that a story is told through journals, interviews, newspaper clippings. It's not a traditional A to B way of telling a story. You get it in bits and pieces. Epistolary also tends to have those different character perspectives and many times also has different timelines. And I love that kind of in the moment knowledge that you're getting rather than looking back on an event. again, introducing the different perspectives in the moment. I love it. There is a certain kind of epistolary, though, that I don't like, which maybe I should have mentioned that in my other video, but House of Leaves is technically an epistolary book. However, it is a certain style, and I'll have to put the word on the screen because I don't remember what it is, but it's more of a collection of objects and memorabilia and files. I might just do a whole screen of the differences between the two, but generally speaking, epistolary books I love. I don't think I've read an epistolary book, a basic epistolary book, that I haven't liked. Carrie by Stephen King is epistolary. You have Dracula. I know there's some others that I'm not thinking of at the moment, but they're great. It's one of my favorite ways to read a story. Then we have a small town trope. You've got this small town, everyone's kind of petty, they keep to themselves, they have this very set way of doing things that you can't change course on them. I love that. It makes for some unlikable characters, it makes some great multiple perspectives. For this, you have, like, Beartown was a great small town vibe book. You have The Flicker of Old Dreams was really great as well. I love me some small town books. Recommend your small town book stories down below. I would love to get some more recommendations for this. It's one of my favorite settings, I think. Then we have survival. This is pretty specific to horror and thrillers. I really like survival books. One of my favorites is a Stephen King book called The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. I think it's very underrated. It's not a Stephen King book that a lot of people talk about, maybe because it's one of his shorter books, and not like a novella, not a short story, but like it's one of his shortest full-length novels. And you have this girl who goes off course to use the bathroom while she's hiking with her family, and she ends up getting totally lost. And I love it. I love a good survival story. If you're not sure on Stephen King, maybe give that one a try. That is one that not a lot of people talk about. It's so underrated. It's so good. I know everyone has very mixed feelings on Stephen King, but that's probably one of my top favorites of his. Also, another horror and thriller trope that I really enjoy, that I think is really survival and stuck in one place, tend to be the most popular horror and thriller tropes that I hear about. I also love those. Stuck in one place is great. My favorite example for this would be No Exit by Taylor Adams. You have this woman who is stuck at a gas station in a snowstorm with 4 or 5 other strangers, and she walks outside and she sees something in one of the cars. And she's got to figure out this mystery, figure out who the bad guy is, but also she can't leave this place, so by finding out, she's also in a lot of danger. I love it. It's interesting. It's thrilling. I'm here for it. Last one that I want to talk about is open endings. I think this is another unpopular opinion. A lot of people that I talk to cannot stand an open ending. I kind of like it. I mean, within reason. You don't want to have an entire book of all unanswered questions. But if you have a couple of questions at the end where you're like, wait, what happened with this? Or where is this going? What? There's not a book 2? I kind of like that. Like, yes, it can be frustrating, but as I pointed out before, a book being frustrating is also a book that is memorable. So I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I like an interesting open ending. Maybe not for all of my books, but from time to time, I want to end on some questions. So I'm going to end here. That is a list of tropes that I like. Please, down below, let me know tropes that you are totally in love with. So please, like, subscribe, be my friend on social media. I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.